Okay, so I appreciate everybody taking the time to be here today. This is big for me. This is the first time that I've opened up one of our trainings to more than just our little intimate social media or reputation team. So I'm very, very glad to have so many of our sales teams engaged on this call. Today is going to be a relatively basic overview of our LinkedIn profile and our most effective and quick ways for us to optimize that. And we'll talk about why and all that fun stuff in just a moment. I am Emily, of course. If you haven't met me before, like Lacey in Baton Rouge, who I will luckily get a chance to meet in person next week, this is me. My contact information is here if you don't already have it, so please don't hesitate to follow up with me if you have any questions after this training. And I will show the slide again at the end of our call as well. So today we're going to go over just an overview of LinkedIn in general, and just kind of talk about the platform, some of the best ways that we can use it, and why we would want to. We'll go over the basic platform navigation, things like how to change your settings and items like that. We'll talk about basic updates that you can make to your profile, which are simple things that you can do in a matter of 5 minutes a day to make a big impact on your LinkedIn profile. We'll also talk about profile enhancements that you can make. So this is things above the basics. So above just changing your job description or adding a new certification that you've gotten, this kind of takes it to the next level. And we'll also close by just kind of recapping everything that we talked about, and we'll also offer some time for discussion so that you can present any other questions that you might have, and we can share some best practices. And if at any point I lose you while we go through this, there will be a huge demonstration section. So if at any point you need me to go over something again, please just stop me and say, hey, can you show me that again? Any questions before we continue? Okay, so in that case, we're going to talk about why we would use LinkedIn. And there are 5 very basic reasons why we would use LinkedIn. And the first and probably the most obvious, and I even hesitated to put it on this presentation, is for networking purposes. We as sales managers and hospitality professionals spend our entire days building, cultivating, and nurturing relationships. And in a national and global market, that can be very difficult to do. So LinkedIn is a great professional way for us to bridge the gap with people we don't have constant face-to-face contact with. It also gives us a certain level of credibility, and that happens for a couple of different reasons. The first and most obvious is that you're there. You, your job, your experiences are all there and available for other people to read. But also, because you are networking on LinkedIn, it gives you credibility in that people see the other organizations, the other schools, the other professionals that you're connected with, and that also gives you credibility. It's also a good way to stay up on industry trends, and not just staying up on them, but contributing to the conversation with your own industry trends. And we'll talk about that when we get into enhanced updates. Speaking of enhanced, it is also, of course, an enhanced resume. Resume is very basic, generic bit of information talking about the quantitative and qualitative information, rather more specifically the quantitative information of your experiences. But this really gets into that qualitative stuff. And you'll see when we look at my profile a little bit later on that there's a lot more than just I'm a director of digital presence. And we'll also talk about lead generation in our next training, but that's another great reason why we would want to use LinkedIn. Are there any other questions while we continue? Okay. So LinkedIn has some great demography, and it's unique to the other social media platforms that we have out there. This information was collected by the Pew Research Center and composed by Sprout Social. And we have viewed this before if you've been on any of our social media trainings. So the location demography for LinkedIn is unique in that it skews much more urban and suburban than our other social media channels, which tend to be a little bit more plain across, so a little bit more even. You can also see that the income and education is vastly different than it would be for our other social media platforms. So whereas for Facebook and Twitter, we have a large percentage of users that have high school or less, or only some college, 50% of 50% of people are college graduates on LinkedIn. And you can also see that there's 44% of people are making in excess of $75,000 a year. So obviously you're looking at people that are, you know, generally more advanced in their careers and have a professional kind of face out there. And then from a gender perspective, just very basic information, 28% of men are engaged on LinkedIn, 27% of women. And you can see, again, unlike other social media platforms, while LinkedIn is overall a smaller percentage of the population is on LinkedIn, you'll see that 30% of people 50 to 64 and 31% of people from 30 to 49 are on LinkedIn. So again, more of that professional age where you're still active in the workforce. And LinkedIn is much like Facebook in the way that content is created, and we won't talk too much about content today. I really do want to focus on your profile in general, but it is a great way to share, and it's very similar to Facebook in the way that it is shared. So you can like, comment, share, you can tag other people and businesses, so the engagement is very similar. That being said, please make no mistake, you do not want to post the same things on Facebook as you do on LinkedIn. Or vice versa, rather. You don't want to post the same things on LinkedIn as you do on Facebook. It is strictly professional. So now we're just going to go through the platform navigation. I'm going to view with you here the 5 steps we're going to go over in platform navigation, the 5 steps we'll go over in basic updates, and the 5 steps we'll talk about in enhancements, and then we'll go into a demonstration. So these will go very quick, and then we'll dive right in. Any questions before we continue? Okay. So platform navigation, we're going to touch on the main page overview. So we'll just kind of look at the page overall when you first get into LinkedIn and what it would look like. We'll talk about your network feed, which is just like your Facebook feed except on LinkedIn, and the ways that you can customize that. We'll talk about the main page menu options. So aside from what you're seeing on that main page, the other action you can take right off the bat. We'll do an overview of your profile and the different sections of it. Now, bear in mind that looking at the profile, while the names of the sections are going to be the same, the order in which they're listed can differ from person to person. And we'll also look at profile updates, so how you go through and navigate to update your profile. For basic updates, we'll touch on your privacy and settings. We'll talk about updating your imagery. We'll talk about changing your heading and summary, which are right at the top of your profile. And we'll talk about changing your experiences. So those are very, very basic, fundamental things that you can do on your LinkedIn profile. And then we'll dig into things that you can do to take it to the next level. So again, like we mentioned, you have your LinkedIn profile that we're going to look at each of the different sections, but you can change them to different orders depending on what you'd prefer that people see first. We'll talk about ways to enhance it by adding projects and documents that you may have associated with different jobs. We'll talk about changing your public profile, so what people can see when they're not directly connected with you yet. And we'll talk about LinkedIn Pulse, which is a great way for you to publish content as well as read content. And we'll also talk about endorsements and recommendations. And I heard somebody ding in. Who just joined the call?
Yep, this is Rebecca from the Henry.
Oh, hey, Rebecca. Welcome in.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. So we are now going to dive into demonstration. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay. In that case, so this is my LinkedIn profile. We're going to be using me as a guinea pig today because I didn't feel like hacking anybody else's account. But if you ever feel like you want to let me hack your account, please let me know. I'd be happy to use you for one of our next calls. So we're going to start out with your main page sections. So when you first logged in to LinkedIn, this is what you're going to see. And it brings you right on the top section, just like you would on Facebook. You have the option to share an update, upload a photo, or publish a post. So this is basically the same as that little share box you get on the top of Facebook. It also gives you a quick snapshot of where your profile is right now, so how many views you've had, if you've published anything as I have, it gives you the opportunity to see how many people are engaging with you. And then there's also this great link right here for improving your profile. So LinkedIn will actually make recommendations for things that you can do to improve your profile right away. And then over here on the right-hand side, there's this fantastic section. If you're ever in a situation where you've only got a couple minutes a day, you're in between sales calls, you just don't have the time to stop, this is a great way to stay engaged on LinkedIn in a very short amount of time. So again, as you can see, it's going to give you some great ways to stay in touch. So Samantha at the DoubleTree in Charlottesville has an anniversary. So I'm going to like that. And I don't think Samantha is on the call today, but we'll be sure to congratulate her anyway. And you can see that Bianca is celebrating 2 years at the Hilton Garden Inn in Denton, so I'm going to like that. So it just kind of gives you a few different ways that you can engage with people. Very nice. Cool, okay. So that is basically your main page section. Really simple, really easy. And if you scroll down here, it starts my timeline. So very easy navigation. So now we're going to talk about this right here. Right here down in this section is my network feed. And you can see that if I scroll down, it gives me all the different posts that people have had. And this is going to automatically default to the most popular posts. So if I follow any trending people or people who put out content on a regular basis that's very popular, they'll always come up first. So I follow Richard Branson, so his information is always on the top. The same with Mark Zuckerberg, his information is always up at the top. So if I want to really just get a good picture of everybody, you can sort this, and there's this tiny little ellipses right at the top of my page, and it gives me the option to sort by top updates, which is how it defaults, or recent updates. So if I select recent updates, it's going to give me everything in order of how recent it's happened. So this is an opportunity for me to pull more information from the people that might not be getting as much engagement on their posts. So like the little old me's of the world. Oh, Sherry and I are not connected yet. You'll also notice while you're navigating through that LinkedIn takes little breaks to give you opportunities to connect and engage with people. So Sherry Taylor at the Holiday Inn Express in Detroit, another one of our properties, it's recommended that she and I would be connected because we should know each other, and we do, so we connected. LinkedIn will give you those nice little breaks. So again, while you're navigating through, you have the opportunity to like, comment, and share on any of the posts that are out there. So again, just hitting the like, comment, or share button. And that, in very basic terms, is your network feed. Pretty simple. We've been doing it for years on Facebook, and it's generally very easy navigation. Any questions about that so far? Okay, so now we're going to touch on profile menus, and everything like that happens way up here at the top. So all of your menus are available. You can always hit the LinkedIn icon, and it's going to bring me back to this main page here. Anytime that I hit that, it'll just reload. And then I have my other options just below it. So I have my home, my profile where I can edit, see who's viewed my profile, or see any updates that I have sent out. And this is a good one if you need to remember a post that you shared or anything like that. You have your network, which includes your connections, adding any contacts that you might have from an outside source like an email server, recommendations for people that you know, and alumni, meaning people that have graduated from the schools you've also graduated from. The jobs section doesn't have a drop-down menu because there's really nothing other than going there and looking for jobs. And interests, including companies that I follow or companies that I manage for those of us who manage our property pages. Groups that you may be engaged in, LinkedIn Pulse, which again we'll talk about in enhanced profiles because this is a place where people actually publish to LinkedIn articles, full-scale articles. SlideShare, which is SlideShare is really interesting. It's basically, in very simple terms, it's an online-based PowerPoint kind of program. So you can create slide decks and share those there. And LinkedIn has purchased SlideShare. We'll probably do a training about that in the future as well, because it is a really great way to share information about your properties. And then go to learning. LinkedIn picked up a great company called lynda.com, Lynda, and for $25 a month, you have unlimited access to these really beautiful, high-quality trainings from professionals all across the globe. And then ProFinder, which again is just another one of the companies that LinkedIn has picked up. So, any other questions about those? Okay, so then on the top right-hand side, just like you would on your Facebook page, it gives you any notifications that you have. So you have your messages, any notifications, people who have requested to connect with you, and then your drop-down menu. So from here, we're actually just going to view my LinkedIn profile, and we'll go over the LinkedIn profile overview. So that's basically the menus overall. So I'm just going to click on my little icon in the top there, and it's going to bring me to my profile page. So at the top of your page, you're going to have your heading just in this box right here, and it's broken down separately. As you're scrolling down, it's going to give you any sections that you don't currently have in your profile. It'll give you your most recent postings to LinkedIn Pulse, and then your summary. And as you continue scrolling down, it's going to give you all of your other information, organizations, experience. And there are other sections here, honors and awards, skills and endorsements, projects, education, additional information including interests and personal details, certifications, volunteers, and courses, languages, groups, and following. So your LinkedIn profile can be as big or as little as you want it to be. So don't ever be afraid when you go onto somebody's LinkedIn page and they don't have anything and that makes you feel like you have too much, or vice versa, going onto somebody's LinkedIn page and they have so much stuff you're worried that you don't have enough. No compare Schwager for anybody. Just your LinkedIn profile, and I cannot stress this enough, is meant to reflect you professionally. So my professional persona, who I am as a professional, is very different than who each of you are. So you want your LinkedIn profile really to be able to reflect that. So the next little section we'll go over before we get into basic updates is how to update your profile. So while you're navigating through, how do you go through and update your profile? Well, it's pretty easy to do. If you scroll over any of these sections, little pencils pop up, and anywhere a little pencil pops up, you have the opportunity to make an edit to that section. Now, as a default, LinkedIn will populate this heading information directly from your profile. So if I change my job listing, it's going to tell me my current job listing is going to change. If I change the school that I'm at, my education is going to change as well. And generally, this will just be your current job position. But you can edit any of those at any point that you want to. So instead of having Director of Digital Presence, which is very confusing, I put specifically Reputation Management and Digital Marketing Skills for Hotels and Restaurants, which gives a little bit more of an understanding of what it is that I do, because Director of Digital Presence doesn't. Likewise, if you change your name because you get married or because you felt like changing your name, you can do that right here as well. And now we're going to dive into how to actually make some basic updates to your profile. Are there any questions before we continue?
Yeah, Emily, this is Debbie at Embassy Suite.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question. I've been getting requests for people who want to connect with me that either I don't know or they're with companies that I'm like, well, how would that benefit me? Would you go ahead and connect with them just so that you get more presence out there and get more followers, or what do you suggest with that if you get someone that wants to connect with you but they're with a company that really it might be something that's more, we might be a potential customer for them. They're just looking for, contacts for their company. I mean, what would you do with those?
Use your discretion.
Okay.
LinkedIn will always recommend that you not connect with people that you don't know already.
Okay.
Because they, just like you wouldn't recommend somebody professionally that you've never actually worked with or that you don't know, you don't want to do that on LinkedIn either. That being said, there are going to be times, there are plenty of times where I connect with people that I don't know directly. So you may have noticed I have a message from Ellis Conley up here. Ellis Conley is the corporate VP of Sales for Trust You, which is a really, Trust You, which is a really great, it's kind of like a Revenate program.
Oh,
and
okay.
I requested to connect to him. We've worked with Trust You before, but in certain ways, but he doesn't know me personally. But I had requested to connect with him so that we could connect and have discussions about the industry in general.
Okay.
So it's really about your discretion. That being said, keep in mind the ones that you're hesitant to connect to, because if you ever try to connect with somebody for sales purposes, they're likely to think those same things. So if you're hesitant to connect with somebody because they just send you a request with no additional information, you're like, I don't really know if I want to connect with them, think about the fact that at some point that you're going to be on the other side of that trying to connect with somebody.
Correct.
So when I connected with Ellis and when I've connected with other people that I don't know personally, there are things either within the industry or topics that I want to discuss that we may have in common. And those, just like anything, when you're cold calling people, those are the things that make you more likely to have a connection.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So generally no, but yes, use your discretion.
Okay.
And there are effective ways to connect with people.
Okay, great. Thanks.
My pleasure.
This is
Okay.
Kathy.
Yes, Kathy.
Can you hear me?
Emily,
Yeah.
we have a question at the DoubleTree Wichita.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead here, but I've noticed as I kind of peruse LinkedIn that we have some people whose profile descriptions is in first person and some who are in third person. And I've always wondered what the appropriate way to tackle that is with my own profile.
It is, again, that is, and we are going to touch on that right now in this section, it is entirely up to you. Again, this goes back to me communicating that your LinkedIn profile is meant to be a representation of you professionally. So while our principals at Greenwood Hospitality will likely have their descriptions in the third person, I don't. Mine is in the first person, but that's me professionally. I'm a little bit more, I don't know, I hesitate to say unprofessional because that's not the case at all, but I'm a little bit more playful because just inherently the work that I get to do and just the person that I am, I'm a little bit more playful. And that communicates through my email correspondence and the trainings that I do and all that stuff. You'll kind of just notice that about me, that I'm a little bit more playful. So really, whatever reflects you the best is the best option for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. So a lot of the answers, some of the answers to these questions are going to be a very gray area. It's like saying, do you think that Brittany is a good name for my kid? It doesn't really matter. It's whatever's best for your kid. It's whatever, whatever. It's a very personal thing. Your profile is meant to be very personal, so personal and professional at the same time. But whatever reflects your professional persona the best, again, is going to be the best for you. So the first thing that anybody would see on your profile is right up here at the top. Obviously, we're first drawn to what you see visually, so I cannot stress enough the importance of a good profile photo. Please don't take a photo at a bar unless you're an F&B director. That works great for you. Be mindful of how you would want to present yourself when you're shaking hands with somebody for the first time. So try and have that in mind when you put your headshot up. That being said, that doesn't mean that there's really any excuse to not have one. This photo is a selfie, believe it or not. The photo that I have up here is a selfie. The one I had prior to that was a cell phone selfie that I took on my 4-year-old iPhone. And it still looked relatively good. It looked great for purposes of LinkedIn. So there's really not a reason to not have one. And the nice thing about taking a selfie is that I got to be silly and goofy and didn't have to worry about anybody else sitting around and being awkward because it's just my camera and a timer right in front of me. That sheet behind me is the sheet that I do all of my my paint on. So when I'm doing my abstract paintings, that's the drop cloth I have underneath me. But that far away, you never notice. And there's nobody to laugh at me when I fell off my stool or I couldn't choose which necklace went best with which dress and got them both wrapped around my glasses at the same time, because it was just me. It was fine. So your profile photo is the first thing that people will see. And make sure that it is of your face. So not you in a group of 16 other people, not your dog, not your most recent artwork. It should be your face. And your background photo is cool as well. That's another nice way to kind of communicate how you would like to professionally be perceived. And for those of you who have been on any of my social calls with me before, you know that my favorite place to make visuals for social is Canva. We just did a training about it, and because of some technical difficulties, that training is not up just yet, but it has been recorded, so you can go in and dive in and take a look at that. So you can create a cover photo, a background cover photo for your LinkedIn page if you'd like to as well. So other than the visual sections, again, it's really easy to do because you just scroll over it and you can edit the background or change your photo. This main section up here is, again, just the same little thing. You can change all of those little areas if you'd like to, but it will populate from below. With your location, the nice thing about having a specific location is that if you are working within a particular market, it makes your profile more visible to the people within that market. I'm not restricted to any particular market. I work with our properties all across the country, so I just left mine as United States. But you can absolutely do, if you are in downtown Nashville, put Nashville. Any questions about this section up here? Okay, super, super, super easy. So that covers our imagery, and we'll talk about our set and our headings, and we'll talk about our summary as well. So again, your summary is a great way to communicate who you are professionally, and as you can see from mine, I write mine in the first person. And there's really no right or wrong answer for this. It's much the same as, it's just a summary. So you want to compose it in the same way that you would, think of it a little bit more like your, when you have a cover page on a resume. You want it to communicate you a little bit, and why you're good to work with in general. But you also want it to talk about who you are as a person. And if you have little tidbits of information that are helpful to people, it's kind of a hook. So you may be more likely to be able to connect with somebody else if they know that you like dogs too, or that you were also on the rowing team during college. I don't know why I chose the rowing team, but it seems like a cool thing. Or other things that you've studied in school. So, and I also, what's really interesting specifically with hospitality is that we all come to the hospitality industry from completely different backgrounds. So some of us traditionally went through school for hospitality, wound up in hotels. Some of us didn't. I started in theater production and design and just fell into hospitality and loved it. 10 years later, I'm still here. So that's, for us, for other hoteliers and other people in the hospitality industry, that can be a really fun tidbit of information, how you got into the industry, why you love what you do, your favorite wedding story for the weddings that you have planned, or whatever the case may be. So that's your summary. I don't have any more specific information about that because it really is going to be up to whatever's best for you. But it's not set in stone. You can always just change it if you need to. So not a big deal. Any other questions about that? Okay. One other quick note, LinkedIn did not used to offer the opportunity for you to add additional types of media to your summary. Now you can. So if you are a painter and your summary is about your artwork, you may want to include a couple of photos of some of your pieces. Or you can include a SlideShare presentation of your pieces or of work that you've done recently. Or a video introduction to your business, or whatever. But you always want it to support who you are and the work that you do and the business that you have. So we did skip a quick step. I want to take a look at our privacy and settings because it's a good place to go. So right from the top right-hand corner, when you're in your settings menu, you have your profile, all this information, job posting, company page, language, privacy and settings. So we're going to go to privacy and settings and make some changes to that just to kind of take a look and make sure it's okay. So very basic information. It includes any of the email addresses you have associated with your account, any of the phone numbers that you have, your language, location, history, third parties, all that stuff. So this is all my basic account information. And then I have my privacy information as well. So the first step here, which we will dig into once we get into our enhanced profile changes, is your public profile, which is what people see if they come across you while they're searching Google or they're just generally looking at LinkedIn and you're not connected. You can also update who can see your connections, how you rank, whether or not you want to be included in people's, whether or not you want to be included in rankings, whether or not you want to be included in viewers of this profile also viewed, if you share your profile edits or not, and other profile viewing options. So again, this really depends on what your preference is. If you're sharing a lot of proprietary information on your profile, you may want to make sure that it's only available to people who you are connected with. But if you're really aggressively working at building new connections, it may be helpful to have people be able to see your profile. You'll notice that there's one section in here, sharing profile edits. Choose whether or not your network is notified about profile changes. So this means if you change your job, if you update the description for a job, if you add a new skill, any of those major profile changes that you might make, it will automatically be published out and people will see that you've made an update. I tend not to do this because I'm constantly in my profile making changes, and it might be to my detriment that I don't have that stuff out there because I'm constantly adding new projects that I've worked on and things like that. But that's entirely up to you. And then blocking and hiding, so you can choose who you follow. If you need to block anybody, so you had an old client who has been like aggressively hounding you, you can block them. And then you have just other things like your data privacy. And then communications is basically just your notification, so how often you want to get emails, invitations, and how you want to be contacted when you get a LinkedIn message. So that's your settings. Any other questions about that? Okay, so the last little section we're going to get into is back on my main profile. We've already talked about how to update your settings, imagery, headings, and summary. Now we'll talk about how to update your experiences. So your experiences are everything. It's the volunteer work that you've done, the jobs that you had, the schools that you've gone to, the classes you've taken, the certifications you have, everything like that. Now, you can go to an individual section. So here, as an example, I have test scores. LinkedIn will provide recommendations for you, so you can add those test scores or any other sections that you need to add. But you can also just go down directly to that section. So let's say I want to make some changes to my Greenwood hospitality description. I can do that right here. When I changed my role, I added a new position. So right from this section here in my experiences, I can add a new position if I'd like to. And then it also gives you the opportunity to move them around. So if and I'll go into this a little bit more in depth in profile optimization, but I can actually take this section and move it if I wanted to a different area. So jobs are one. You can also update your honors and awards. So if you were recognized for best sales manager in the area, if you got a Rose Award, if you got a Marriott, Spirit to Serve Award or Hilton Cares Award, you can include all of that on your honors and awards section with a brief description. And when you go into each of these, so let's say, for instance, I'm adding a new job position. If I am adding Hilton Worldwide, for instance, it gives me the opportunity to put Hilton Worldwide, and the logo will appear there. You can change You can change the company, so I'll show you an example. So, where is it? So the Renaissance Providence Downtown Hotel is not the logo that's here. Sage Hospitality is the logo that's here. So once I have created a new position and I update my title, I'm going to save this. Oh, never mind. It didn't save. Well, what you would generally be able to do is once I've gone in and put the company, I can change the name, change the company, or edit the display name. So Greenwood Hospitality, I can either change the company entirely or edit the display name. So if, for example, the hotel that I work for does not have a company LinkedIn page, I can make myself associated with Greenwood Hospitality, but change it to be the DoubleTree in Charlottesville, or whatever the case may be. Does everybody understand that? I'm going to take that silence as a yes. So again, you can have a company association and change the title of the business that you work for. These we're going to get into in the enhanced section. So education is very much the same, except that you cannot edit the name of the school once you're there. But you can add education, and it gives you some basic information. LinkedIn gives you very clear sections, so the school you went to, the dates you attended, the degree you got, the field of study, your grade, any activities, and the description. So it gives you a very clear breakdown of what they like for each of those sections. And any additional information, this includes your interests. Again, this is a nice way, while you don't have to have it on your profile, it is that little hook, an opportunity for people to be like, oh, I like that too, or I also did that, or whatever. Volunteer is the same as your job in that you also would include the company that you've done business with or for, and their image will appear. And you can include your description there. Courses that you've taken, again, very self-explanatory, same with languages. Groups are a little bit different. You can manage the groups you're a part of. Groups, like groups on Facebook, you have to request to be a part of, and you can find this up in your interests section. It will bring you to groups, and you can add different groups. So you can search for new groups by discovering, and any time that you ask to join a particular group, once you are accepted, it will automatically appear on your profile. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that? Okay, so groups and people that you follow, these are automatically populated. All right, so that covers all of our basic profile updates. Are there any questions to this point? Okay. So we're going to go now into some enhanced things that you can do. Change section orders is going to be the first one. So we kind of went over this already just a little bit. You can move things to a new section. So let's say I wanted my summary underneath my experience. I can move it all the way down here just by dragging it and dropping it to a new section. If I wanted to leave it up top or move it back, you can do that as well. And it's just as simple as dragging and dropping. And that is how you change the section orders. So you may have seen on my job description here that I have a lot of things attached to it. And these are all the trainings that we've done so far. So anytime, once this training has been recorded, it will also appear on my LinkedIn profile. We also have a YouTube channel for it. So in order to add a document, you just use this little square plus button, click to add video, image, document, or presentation. And it gives you an example, so you can either upload a file or you can put a link to a page. So it can be a link to a YouTube channel like these ones are, it's to a specific video. It can be to a slideshare presentation. it can be related to anything as long as it's communicating something that you have done. Then once you continue, it's basically just going to add it to whichever job that you want to add it to, and you'll be good to go. So that is how you would add documents to your profile. A project is a little bit different. A project is something that I may have worked on with somebody else at the time. So you can actually do that right in the projects section. It has its own section, so I'm going to scroll back down to that. So I have projects here. I can add a project, and this includes, so you'll see here, back before my position was actually a position, I was just a reputation management champion, just like our reputation management champions are now, and our social media champions are. So that can be a project that you're doing in addition to the work that you have. You're also a social media champion, and the person that you're working on that project with is me, or it could be me and your director of sales and marketing. So you would add the project, put a name for the project, the job that you had while you were doing it, the time that you had done it, either if it was a one-time or a date range. If you have a particular URL for the project, let's say an example is the DoubleTree in Charlottesville does a lot of work in their local community. They do a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Club, I want to say. I think it's the Boys and Girls Club down there. So you may have a URL that goes directly to the Boys and Girls Club projects that you've helped with. Lori at the Hilton Chicago and Oaklawn does a lot with the Walk for a Cure, and they have their own website, so that would be an example. And then you would add just, this is kind of just another layer of credibility. You add any team members that you've done this project with. So Beth Ann probably worked with Kelly for the Boys and Girls Club Cookie Cares program or the Cares program, Teaching Kids to Care program. So you can add those people to that project as well. Any questions about that? Okay. We're going to dive into the next section about your profile, which is your public profile. And there's two major changes that we're going to make. One is going to be to see who can see our or what areas of our profile people can see when they're not connected with us. And the other is the link that we share. So you'll notice right under my page, I have www.linkedin.com/in/mpendaily. And that is my customized LinkedIn URL. The reason why I want that is that it's easy for me then to say to people, go to linkedin.com/in/mpendaily or Emily Daily or whatever you choose for it to be. You can allow that to be custom. So there's, just like everywhere else on my LinkedIn page, there's a little settings button next to it. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to give me my public profile. And this is showing me everything that appears currently on my public profile. On the right-hand side, this is where I actually make my changes. So you have the opportunity to edit or create a public profile URL if you don't have one yet. So it's very simple to do, updating your public profile URL. And then you can customize your profile as well. So you can either make it visible to no one or make it visible to everyone. And when you make it visible, you can decide what people can see. Basic information, picture, headline, post, summary, anything. There, you can add or remove sections of your profile that you want people to see or not see at any point. So decide what is the most important for you. The one big note I will have about this is it is very helpful to have your picture there, because if somebody doesn't remember your name, because I'm not always good at remembering people's names, but I remember the face. Oh, they look so familiar. I know them from somewhere. I'm going to connect with them. It also gives a little bit of credibility as opposed to seeing that white background with a gray face. You know that they're actually a person, that it's not a scam or spam or anything like that, that they're legitimately a person. And they may not be, but it does give that air of credibility. So that's the one thing on your public profile that I would recommend that you do keep on there is your picture. Any questions about your public profile? Okay. I'm going to show you really quickly an example of where that would come up. So if I'm searching Emily Penfold Daily, you'll see a few of my profile pictures come up. So you'll see Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Those are the first ones. So Twitter and LinkedIn, and they both pop up right on the top there. So it gives you the opportunity to get to your LinkedIn profile. Now, if I were to click on this link right now, it's just going to bring me back to the page I'm on because I am logged in as myself. But it would generally bring you to this page. So what you see here on the left-hand side, it would show you all of this information. Not the descriptions, but just the places that I worked, the honors and awards that I have. So it's going to show you all of this information. Okay, so that's how you create a custom URL and update your public profile. Now, there are two other things that we'll talk about. The first one is going to be endorsements and recommendations. So when I go back to my LinkedIn profile, you'll notice down in my skills section, I have all these other people's faces next to me. So you can add skills to your list, and every time you add a skill to a list, it gives people the opportunity to endorse you for that skill. And it's a really quick way to kind of just receive quick recommendations from people like, yeah, she definitely knows about this, or yeah, they definitely know about that. So adding skills gives you that opportunity. The other nice way that you can do that is with recommendations. So I'm going to show you an example of what a recommendation looks like. What a recommendation looks like. So Virginia Rednick, who I don't have any other autograph collection people on right now, but she was our, she handled social media for Autograph Collection Corporate. So she and I worked very closely together while she was at Marriott International before she moved to Texas. So if you scroll down her profile, you see she has her skills here. And a little bit farther down, you'll notice that she has a recommendations section. So recommendations that she has received and recommendations that she has given. So your recommendation section will appear once you have received a recommendation, and you can request them as well. So she has a few on here, and she has given a few recommendations as well. And in order to do that, if I go to my profile, you can just, I'm sorry, bear with me just a moment, I accidentally clicked on that. So just to the right of your view profile as, you have the opportunity to ask to be recommended. And basically what it does is it just sends a LinkedIn message to whoever you choose. So I'm going to pick the position, so Portfolio Reputation Manager, and I'm going to ask 3 people. And I will tell them what my relationship was. I worked with Kathy in the same group. Kathy was the Director of Sales, and then you can say your message. So you want to customize this. Think about what it would be like when you're asking somebody for a recommendation in person, and that kind of same methodology goes into when you're asking them here. If I just use this generic, I'm writing to ask a recommendation of my work that I include on my LinkedIn profile, it doesn't really give that much information or incentive to do it. Now, if I said I'm trying to get a new piece of business, or I'm so pleased with the project that we did on this, I'd love your input on how we performed together and how I worked with you, that may be a little bit different. So try to be personal and conscious of the time that you're asking somebody to commit to you when you ask for those recommendations. If you've ever received, whether it be a letter or a note or a personal recommendation from somebody in business that you've done, those are great opportunities to request a recommendation. So if let's say you get a beautiful thank you letter from a client, you can reach out to them this way and include the verbiage from the letter that they said and say, hey, I really appreciated the note that you sent me. I'd really like to include this as a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. Would you, if you have the time, I would appreciate you, sharing it. And then you can just paste the words that they have already written and send that out, and it makes it that much easier for them. So the same methodology goes into this from that perspective as it does when we get a positive review and we want them to share it on TripAdvisor or whatever. So we can do that both for the business and for us as a professional. So if you ever get a letter from somebody thanking you specifically for work that you've done or a project that you've been on, that's a great opportunity to ask for a recommendation, and those speak volumes. So that covers endorsements and recommendations, and there's one last little bit we'll get into, and that's publishing an update. Now, this is a really quick thing to do. From interests, you're going to go to LinkedIn Pulse, and LinkedIn Pulse is articles, so it is kind of like just a collection. It's almost like a Huffington Post. It's kind of a collection of articles written by professionals that are self-published. So all of the better ones for people that I follow are going to be here over on the left-hand side, or recommended ones that I have, but you can publish a post as well, and that's right there on the top. So you can include an image, a headline, and your article. And I did my first one this year, and I actually based it off of one of our more recent social media communication emails that went out, and kind of just tweaked it for use on LinkedIn and was able to publish it there. But you can do the same thing. If you have ever shared an article, if you have ever written an article or written a long-form piece of content around something, you can reformat it slightly to make sure that it's legible as a standalone piece and share that on LinkedIn as well. So that is LinkedIn Pulse and publishing an update. So that kind of covered everything that we were going to go over. Are there any questions before we wrap up? Okay. So in closing, LinkedIn is always meant to reflect you. So it is going to reflect your professional persona. So if you are a little bit more jovial and playful, you can let that come through in your LinkedIn profile. If you are a die-hard professional, let that come through in your LinkedIn profile. It should communicate the work that you've done, the relationships that you've cultivated. All of that should be seen on that profile. The time investment is flexible. You can do something as quick as going through those updates on the top right-hand corner of your profile to like new jobs that people have, or you can invest minutes and hours and weeks cultivating a really beautiful collection of articles for LinkedIn. LinkedIn lead generation training is coming up next week. We're going to dive into search and other beneficial kind of ways to make connections on LinkedIn. And as a reminder, all of these sessions are recorded as well. So before we wrap up entirely for the day, I'm going to open this up to all of you, so you can go ahead and unmute yourselves. Based on what we've talked about today, what do you or would you use LinkedIn for? What tip or best practice did you like today, or do you already use that you'd like to share? And do you have any other questions and comments?
Emily, this is Cindy from the Crown.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. I haven't really utilized LinkedIn just because I was kind of afraid of what information is out there. But certainly with your presentation, it gives me a little bit better idea of exactly what I can do and how I can bring it up to date.
Thanks, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Anything else? I know that I've already had, some of us have already had discussion about LinkedIn, especially from a professional perspective. At the Crown Plaza, I know that we had talked about your company page and, how to kind of get into it. How about you, Yogi? I know that we had talked about your LinkedIn profiles as well for your sales managers. Have you given any thought to any other questions or comments that you might have?
No, we're going to be doing it. We just brought on a new salesperson, and then I'm short another one, so kind of. But we were just talking about that during the presentation too, about the DoubleTree LinkedIn one that we're going to put up first, and
cool.
then just individual ones.
And now the nice thing about LinkedIn also is that not only we don't ever want to think that we're going to leave the job that we're in, because we all love our jobs. But it is a great way to make us more attractive to recruiters and other companies, as well as other clients and other people that are looking to work at our company. So if you go in for an interview, and you can ask anybody in your midst who you have interviewed with, and they come in for an in-person interview, what due diligence are they doing either prior to their interview or after their interview to kind of find out more about the company and what it is that you might be looking for? Are they doing a search? Are they looking for you? So as we're hiring, both for clients and for other sales managers and other professionals, this is just one other place for us to make sure that there's a clear understanding of what we stand for and what we're like to work with and work for and have work done by. So anything else? Any other questions, comments, thoughts, or reflections based on our conversation today?
Hey, Emily, this is Debbie again, and there's a lot. You gave a lot of information, a lot of things that I see that I need to get in and do. So what would be your number one first thing would be setting up your profile?
The number one first thing when you're setting up your profile is that top section. So having a good headshot and that little header is a really great section. The next things that are less scary are the obvious ones, like your job history. You've probably written it 100 times on resumes and things like that, so those are the easiest things to do. What people see first, and then kind of building it from there. So yes, we did go over a lot of information today, but we kind of did it in order of what is best to do. So that imagery, your headings, the summary, and those experiences, those are the basic things, and those don't take very much time. So your imagery and that top section right there, that is probably the most, the quickest and number one thing I would say you'd want to do.
Okay, and as far as like job history, I've been here forever, so does it even matter that I would list where I was before here?
Sure. I mean, we have people who have been in the industry for, the Henry has people who have been at the property for the whole time that the Henry's been in existence, 27 years.
Yeah, I've been here for 29 this August, so.
Wow. Yeah, see, but it's nice to know. The other thing, too, is that it's nice to be able to see, while you have that extensive history, it is nice to see that you've had a history before that. Was this the first hotel job? No. Have you grown within the company? Have you been a DOSM for 29 years, or have you grown up through the property? So everybody has different stories, and that's a good way to be able to communicate that. I have one on there from JCPenney back in the day, but you can start whittling those away as you go. But if you've been at the property for 29 years and that was your first job and that's your only job, awesome, just put that. And you can beef it up with projects that you've worked on instead of including other jobs prior to that.
Okay, excellent.
Anything else? Any other concerns, questions? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else right now, that doesn't mean that there won't be something else later. As you are picking through LinkedIn and exploring your profile and building things, if you come across anything that you don't understand, please email me, shoot me a note, or give me a call and let me know. The one recommendation I make is if you're stuck on something and you can't figure out how to get somewhere, take a screenshot. It makes it much easier for me to be able to recognize what steps you might need to take next. We do have this training happening again this afternoon. It will be a duplicate to this one, and then we do have our LinkedIn profile optimization trainings happening next week as well. I'll be reaching out to all of your DOSMs just to make sure that I have your first and last names and your email addresses so that I can send out this training once it's been recorded. And if you need anything else, again, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you all for taking the time today. Have a great day.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
All right.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.